While I think Firebrand is the most overpowered specialization in the game, not everyone enjoys that playstyle, and in PvP it hasn't seen much success due to it being easy to focus down. Dragonhunter is the other elite specialization for Guardians in Guild Wars 2, which provides a more mobile burst approach, and while Firebrand is only overpowered in 2 game modes, you could say that Dragonhunter is very strong in all game modes. But if I wanted to experience all of the game modes with the Dragonhunter build, there are templates and gear that may take a while to obtain, gating you from enjoying it as soon as possible. That is why in this video I'll be showing a Dragonhunter build which will use one set of gear and one general playstyle that can allow you to play all the game modes as soon as possible with the versatility and effectiveness to succeed. Of course, if you want to specialize for raids and fractals or Zerg content, you need to make some minor adjustments, but this build will prepare you for that and will also allow you to have a similar gear set. Before I go over the specific build, let's go over the Dragonhunter mechanics that will apply to all game modes. Dragonhunters gain powerful effects on their virtues, but they'll now have cast times. The F1 Spear of Justice is a piercing, unblockable projectile that will tether enemies that it hits and reveal them, preventing them from entering stealth. While tethered, they will receive pulsing burns and cripple. The skill can be activated again to pull any tethered enemies toward you, ending the pulsing burn and cripple. The cooldown of the pull is different from the cooldown of the tether, essentially equating to 1 pull every other tether. The F2 Wings of Resolve is a leap which will remove Immobilize and then remove 2 other conditions from yourself and perform an area heal for you and nearby allies at the landing place. Shield of Courage will block any attacks from the front but leave you vulnerable to those that hit you from behind. You can also block attacks for allies that are within the shield animation. They'll get a buff that blocks for them. Because the skill is very defensive, but also requires you to face whatever is hitting you, it's not the best for kiting enemies with, because if you run straight away from them, you get hit from behind. And if you face them, then you don't get to safer positioning as fast. Often you want to backpedal to face the direction where most attacks come from and to counter pressure while you're blocking. Dragonhunters also reduce the cooldown of their F1 ability whenever they block, and will deal increased damage to foes the further they are from them. For equipment, I take a mix of Marauders and Berserkers and Valkyrie gear. The numbers you want are around 15,000 to 16,000 HP and 50% crit chance. Guardians are normally very squishy unless they take some vitality, but that comes at the cost of some precision, which we can make up for with Fury and some crit chance increasing traits. Fireworks runes give movement speed to an otherwise very slow class, and also they help to give Fury when entering combat. I take a Longbow with the Sigil of Vision and Celerity. Celerity gives quickness when disabling an enemy, which you can trigger with deflecting shot. Because this is a burst build, having quickness and the extra crit chance from the Vision Sigil is just going to make the bursts go out much more smoothly and reliably. I have a Greatsword which I take Force and Rage for more quickness to follow through with the bursts, and just more damage because that's what this weapon's purpose is. For World vs. World, I take a Sword and a Shield because they'll provide much more utility and combo potential. Put a Sigil of Energy and Cleansing on the Sword and Shield, because you want to be using it as a kiting weapon while waiting for your bursts. And then use the bowl of sweet and spicy butternut squash soup for more power and ferocity. The traits I take in PvE are Valor, Radiance, and Dragonhunter. Take all the resolution traits in Radiance for extra damage. Your F1 is recharged whenever an enemy dies, allowing easy chain killing in open world and momentum plays in PvP. You get 10% more crit chance when the enemy is burning and 25% more crit chance when you have resolution, Upkeeping resolution is the best way to maintain high damage modifiers, but resolution also inherently gives condition damage reduction, which makes up for this build's lack of condition cleanse other than the Smiter's Boon, which triggers on heal skill. This is a meditation, and since Monk's Focus makes all meditations heal, it gives 2 sets of healing since the meditation heal will trigger another meditation. This will also provide extra fury, which is really important for your crit chance. The other trait choices don't really matter because there's not too many, so just go for strength in numbers in PvE. This build is one of the least survivable builds I've covered for the series because it gets so much value from going aggressively. However, when played well using positioning and cooldown management, it can still survive some risky situations. There is protection on Test of Faith, blocks from Shield of Courage, the ability to reposition with Wings of Resolve and Greatsword Leap, and of course, Renewed Focus provides invulnerability and a reset to all of your virtues so that you have a longer window of safety in between your big bursts. Also, using the Meditation Heal Litany of Wrath will give you value to survive almost any counter pressure because it heals for a % of damage dealt, so it scales really well with this aggressive playstyle. If you want to optimize your damage output in group scenarios where you have the support of your squad, then just take Zeal and all the damaging traits, and of course you'd probably want Scholar and a little bit more Berserker. But for our purposes here, the survivability from Valor is going to be a lot better, and the Zeal trait line doesn't really scale well with the Longbow, which is really great in open world anyways. For Dragonhunter traits, take Piercing Light for lower trap cooldowns on Procession of Blades and Test of Faith. Zealot's Aggression gives 10% more damage to crippled enemies, and you get cripple from the F1 Tether, Test of Faith, and Longbow 5. Then finally take Big Game Hunter. This increases the damage dealt to targets who are tethered by your Spear of Justice by 15% and increases the duration of the tether from 6 to 10 seconds. Whenever you hit your tethered target, it will get 1 stack of vulnerability for 10 seconds. But there is no internal cooldown on this, so fast hitting attacks like the Procession of Blades and your Greatsword 2 will stack up vulnerability very quickly. Because this is a burst build, you'll want to land all of your damage within the duration of your tether for the maximum damage. The hardest hitting abilities are Procession of Blades, Whirling Wrath, True Shot, and any of these symbols on both weapon sets. So you want to make sure to land those every time you get a tether out, your Spear of Justice, and then fill in the gaps with low cooldown skills until the tether is back up, and then fit as much as you can in the small window of time. The quickness from sigils will help to fit as much in that window of time. However, True Shot and Whirling Wrath are low enough cooldowns that you can just use them off cooldown and still be able to fit them into the burst every time. The Longbow 5 is a short channel that will cripple enemies with multiple hits, meaning it will also give multiple stacks of vulnerability when hitting tethered enemies, but it has a bit of a delay to the final hit, which will trap enemies individually, preventing them from leaving the ward. Avoid using skills with large cast times or aftercasts during your Spear of Justice duration. For example, the Longbow 3 Deflecting Shot is decent damage, but it's a 3/4 second cast that will knock enemy mobs around, making it harder to land other skills potentially. I prefer to use this before the tether to get the Celerity sigil to trigger. Skills like Test of Faith that have no cast time are great to use in your burst window because they don't compete for animation time. Binding Blade is an interesting skill because it can be used to pull together enemy mobs with a similar effect to your Spear of Justice. It will send out up to 5 projectiles to each nearby enemy, and when they have been hit with the Binding Blade, it will pulse damage over time. If you aren't intending to use the pull, then this damage can be really good, but it doesn't really scale with anything, so it's not too important when you use it. What does matter is the positioning and number of enemies nearby. If you want to pull enemies together, you want to be in a spot where none of the blades overlap each other and hit the same target. And if you're in a boss fight with plenty of additional enemies, positioning the binding blade right inside the boss will make all 5 projectiles hit the same target for an insane spike of damage. If you're just running around one-shotting mobs in open world, you can often just use your heal skill for resolution and fury and then Spear of Justice into True Shot and be done with it. But if you need to do multiple bursts to kill something, you want to prioritize using True Shot and Whirling Wrath off cooldown and then use both sets of weapon skills and traps within a Spear of Justice duration, then just use True Shot and kite until Spear is back, fill the gap with True Shots or Whirling Wrath and auto attacks, and then use those same skills in reverse order because of the weapon swap cooldown you want to save for the big burst. So some of the decisions that I'll be making when doing my burst rotation are, I want to use the pulsing damages while my tether is up because those will do the most amount of hits, and every hit is going to give vulnerability, just making everything do more damage. So you want to save Symbol of Energy, Procession of Blades, and Symbol of Resolution, and only use those during the duration of your Spear of Justice. Otherwise, you can use Whirling Wrath and True Shot off cooldown because they're so low cooldown, and there's a single targeting True Shot, and Whirling Wrath is just going to do so much damage that it's still good even if you don't have the tether. You also have Test of Faith and Stand Your Ground, which have no cast time, so they don't compete for animations. So just use those whenever you have the need for your resolution to burst, and this you can just use in your F1 or if you need like protection. And then of course you'll use Litany of Wrath when you're not in your tether duration because it's not going to do any damage unless you really need the resolution now. But yeah, you can use that at any time to keep up your resolution. So the rotation is going to look like this. I'm going to start out with my Procession of Blades, put down the pulsing damage in my, you can see the vulnerability here, and then I use the Greatsword burst. I'm going to auto attack, and probably Binding Blades is good here, and Leap of Faith as well. Inside the duration there, I'm going to Whirling Wrath, and then I'm going to upkeep my resolution here, wait for the tether to use my symbol there, and then I'm going to use my Whirling Wrath, and then swap into the Longbow, use the Longbow 2 and the Longbow 4. Hopefully the Longbow 4 finishes before your tether ends, so usually you want to use that first, but if they all fit within that duration, it's fine. I'm going to use the resolution here, and I'm going to use the combo again from the Longbow side, True Shot into the Greatsword burst, and then Binding Blade into Leap of Faith. I can use the Test of Faith at the end of the Spear of Justice duration there. Now I'm waiting for the Spear of Justice cooldown to use my Symbol of Resolution and Procession of Blades. Now I can do them. I'm going to get some resolution here just to upkeep my damage. After the Whirling Wrath, I swap into the Longbow, keep up my resolution, and I'm going to give myself some quickness here before I do the burst again with the deflecting shot. And yeah, the deflecting shot is going to be used now for the quickness. I'm going to precast Procession of Blades, get out the pulsing damage here, True Shot, swap into Greatsword, do the 2 skill, the 4 skill, do the auto chain there, do some leaps and stuff, and then we'll Whirling Wrath here. Get some resolution now, and I'll give myself more resolution. We've got the burst up now, so I'll do the entire pulsing damage combo, Whirling Wrath, swap into the Longbow, use the 2 and the 4, and then use the 2 one more time before the tether ends, and that's pretty much it. In PvE, you have the benefit of taking the fight whenever you can. So this allows me to precast a set of traps, and then when I enter the encounter, I can use my second set of traps, which have come off cooldown immediately. So essentially I get 2 sets of traps, which gives me a lot of protection from Test of Faith and a lot of burst. So I'm not quite able to break the bar of the Mushroom Queen here, so I have to back out. I use my Shield of Courage to try to tank the pulsing areas that they'll place on the ground, which do so much damage, and this is a very squishy build, so I cannot stand in that for more than a tick or I'll just die, as you can see. So I'm just trying to kite around here. I'm almost dead, but my heal skill is coming off cooldown very soon, and once I go into my heal skill, I'm essentially invulnerable so long as I'm pulsing out damage, because I'm healing way faster, because I can do so much damage way faster than anyone can really kill me. So I want to play very aggressively during those windows where I have my heal skill up, which is healing me more than I can take damage from a lot of things. I want to play aggressively during my Shield of Courage because I'm blocking anyways, and otherwise I want to be kiting with my F2, my Greatsword 3, and waiting for cooldowns. And of course, Renewed Focus is going to allow me to use my Shield of Courage and my F2 more often to kite better. So managing your cooldowns is super important for survival on this build. And if you do it correctly, you can see even with this very squishy build, I'm able to survive just barely against one of the hardest and most damaging, risky hero points in Heart of Thorns. So I use the F1 there. Usually I wouldn't say you want to pull, you want to keep the damage modifier, but because it's about to end anyways, I use the pull because you're going to lose the damage modifier when it ends anyways. So using the pull right before it ends is great for getting some break bar damage or to get the CC if you really want that. So I have my heal skill up here, so I play very aggressively to get myself to full HP. I back off. Once I don't have it, I use my deflecting shot to CC the Mushroom Queen, break their bar, and do the burst here. Now they're sending out their AoEs again. I'm taking a lot of damage, so I have to kite. I get a really good true shot, which kills all the adds instantly in one shot. My heal skill is off cooldown now, and I can just go into my Greatsword, and I'm going to kite, but the boss is going to die from all the residual AoEs on the ground. In World vs. World, you're going to be using a sword and shield with Marauders. Go for a little bit more vitality on the sword shield set and cleansing and energy because it's more of a defensive / utility set. Virtues is going to allow you to do 20% more damage when you have Aegis, and you can reapply Aegis with your Shield of Judgment, your Shield 4, which you can put in the middle of your combo to get the Aegis, but yeah, it's not really too reliable because it's very easy to break an Aegis. And then you have Absolute Resolve, which is going to give Condition Cleanse on your F2, the Wings of Resolve. So the build gets its Condition Cleanse in PvP definitely. And you have Indomitable Courage, which gives you a stun break and stability when you use your Shield of Courage, which is really great for your allies as well. It's really good for getting stomps on down bodies and in general just team play. So really great trait line here for interacting with other players in World vs. World. Then in Valor, we still have all the meditation synergy because we're actually going to run 4 meditations here. And also instead of the Strength in Numbers trait, we're going to be taking the Stalwart Defender, which is the shield trait, because while we have a shield, it's going to give us 240 toughness, which is pretty good survivability considering we only really have vitality. So it helps to round out the build, give you a little bit more survivability. And instead of Piercing Light, since we're really only taking 1 trap, I take Dulled Senses, which is going to apply Cripple whenever you disable someone. You can disable with your Shield 5, any of your pulls, and of course Longbow 3. The main combo is going to be knocking the enemies through your Test of Faith. So normally what you want to do is land your tether, and then you want to put your Test of Faith on top of them, push them out, pull them back in, push them back out, and then use True Shot. Now, the reason why you want to put the Test of Faith on top of them and proc it before you start pulling people is because if I do the pull and pull them into the Test of Faith, then it procs the Test of Faith to come out of the ground, but it doesn't pull them through it. You want to just put that on top of them and then pull them through it. So yeah, the main combo once again is you want to tether and then probably use your sword 2 to get on top of them, and then put your Test of Faith down, push them out, pull them back in, and then knock them back out with the deflecting shot and then true shot them. So that's going to put them through 3 tests of faith, which is going to do a ton of damage, and you can also get them with the true shot at the end. Now obviously not everyone is going to let you just do that to them, because they're going to know how to play around Dragonhunter, so a lot of times you're going to have to bait out cooldowns, and there are still ways that you can bait out cooldowns and do damage without doing your entire combo. Your combo pieces are your shield 5, your pull from your tether, and your test of faith obviously, and your deflecting shot. So you have 2 pushes and 1 pull. So it's fine if you waste one of your pushes, because then you can still push and pull through. But if you use your pull and you've got 2 pushes, you can't really push them through twice, because you have to push them through and then get behind them and push them back in. So save your pull and one of your pushes so you can get them through at least 2 instances of the test of faith. Now there's another combo that you can do where you essentially precast your Hunter's Ward, and then you will pull the enemy in. So you make sure you have the tether, precast the Hunter's Ward on yourself, and then pull them into it, and they'll get Hunter's Warded. And then from that point you can just spam symbols on them, because it's going to be hard for them to get out of your Hunter's Ward, and they're just going to eat all of your symbols. And then you can Zealot's Defense, because that's kind of a hard skill to land as well, but when they're stuck in your Hunter's Ward, it's going to do a lot of damage. You do have access to Contemplation of Purity now, which is going to cleanse tons of conditions from you and give you a stun break. And then Judge's Intervention, which is going to be a 1200 range port to the target, and that's going to allow you to do a lot of combos. So you can, for example, if the target is not even close to me, I can precast my spear and then Judge's Intervention, and they can't see that coming. And once you have the spear on them, it opens so many more windows for killing them. So landing your Spear of Justice is probably one of the more important things, and making it not predictable that you're using it is how you're going to land it. Another way that you can land your Spear of Justice is you can detarget it and then retarget it before it finishes casting, because how the spear works is you have to be facing the target, but if you don't have a target, you can just throw it out into the middle of nowhere. So if I throw it out into the middle of nowhere but retarget it, then half of the animation is done not facing them, and it gives them less time to react and allows you more chances to actually hit your Spear of Justice. So you can do the detargeting, you can port in with judges to land your spear. There's a lot of ways for you to make combos with this build. And of course, the most important thing with this build is going into your options here and turning on show all enemy names. And this is going to show you stuff like this catapult in the distance, but it's also going to show you neutral mobs and other things that you can port to survive. Say I'm being chased up here and I want to juke the players over here, I can I can Judge's Intervention down here, and that will allow me to, in a lot of cases, get out of combat. You can combine that with your Wings of Resolve, your Sword 2, and that's going to allow you to get out of combat and then mount up and you've disengaged. In PvP, you have access to the Trapper Rune, which can give you stealth and super speed whenever you use a trap, and because PvP gameplay is centered around nodes, you can often bait people into your traps and get a lot of value off of that. Whereas in World vs. World, it's so open space that it's harder to get value out of traps, and if you use Trapper Rune to get the stealth and super speed, but you can't really get value off of your traps, then it seems like a waste. So I feel that Valor and Meditations are better in World vs. World, and the Trapper Rune works out for PvP because traps, and just going for a bunch of traps is a lot more valuable in PvP. And because you have the Trapper Rune, you have a lot of disengage, and you have the potential to hide your animations. So your Spear of Justice and your True Shot have these very obvious tells to them, but when you're in stealth, half of that tell is basically gone because the wind up is in stealth, and the projectile is probably coming out faster than people can really react to that. And once you land your tether on someone, you got quite a big lead, because then you can pull them into your traps and it just baits so many of their cooldowns just from the fact that you had stealth. So yeah, Trapper Runes is really strong. And of course you have Radiance, which is going to give you the resolution synergy and the crit chance. So with the resolution on, you'll get resolution as well from virtues. So you get resolution from your F1, you can press your 2 skill and that'll crit for a lot of damage. You can also get Fury from Procession of Blades and your Sword 2 symbol, which is going to give you essentially 100% crit chance, because you've got the 97 there, and then you've got, if the target is burning, another 10%, so you're like 107% crit chance there. And that'll do a lot of damage even with the Marauder Amulet, because of the Sigil of Separation and Opportunity, which do more damage to crippled foes, because movement impaired foes take more damage. That's including cripple, and you do a ton of cripple on this build. And foes who are further than 500 distance, which Longbow 2 is 1500 range. And then on the sword shield you have energy and cleansing. Here's a ranked match as the Trapper Dragonhunter. The role of this build is more of a roamer than a team fighter or DPS, because in those team fights usually the enemy team has support, and support is kind of a counter to this build, so you kind of play as a roamer using stealth and the super speed to move around. In this match I see that there is a thief on the enemy team, so I know they're going to stealth open here. I use my Test of Faith, which has no animation, so even if I'm stunned I can still get into stealth, and that can help me to survive being focused and stun locked like that, because having stealth even though you're stunned is going to prevent some damage dealt to you. So I'm still getting focused by the thief and probably the druid there, because I got immobilized. So I am trying to kite out. I still have the stealth from a lot of my traps left, and yeah, the enemy team is not going to be able to finish me off because the stealth with super speed is just so strong. But my teammates die at mid because I am pushed off, so we're potentially going to lose that team fight, so I'm not going to risk it and go there and die because I have no cooldowns. So yeah, I'm just going to leave and go to far. So we die, yeah, our warrior's dead, and I'm going to be forced into a 1v1 with a druid, which is not the best, but because I had stealth there, I was able to land my tether. I pulled them in, I pushed them out, and I knocked them back, but that was probably a bad play to knock them back. I should have just gone for the true shot there because I knocked them out of line of sight of my true shot. But I'm able to disengage here. I don't really have cooldowns, but I go in stealth and re-engage with the tether there because they can't really see it's coming, so landing that is pretty strong. I de-target my Fury symbol there so I can guarantee the true shot crit, and that did 9,000 damage to the Reaper, so that's going to do a lot. I tried to give my Necromancer a heal there, but it didn't really hit them because they went in Shroud. So now, yeah, I think there's like 3 of us and 4 of them here, so we're outnumbered, and I need to just use my traps, try to get out of the situation here. And both my Necromancers are very low HP, so I just need to leave, and I'm gonna do exactly that. So I see at mid our team is not winning that either, so I'm gonna maybe try to jump on their Reaper to see if we can get something done before their entire enemy team comes in here. I pull them and then I put down my trap. I shield knock back them into the wall so that my trap can still hit them while they're stunned there, and they're still going to get revived by the signet from the support core guardian here. So yeah, they have a support and we don't, so we kind of have to play very safely this match, and yeah, it's very dangerous. So there I did a little bit of a juke play where I used my Trapper Rune to go in stealth and then change directions and head towards my base. You always want to be not predictable, right? You don't want to be predictable, and the stealth helps you to make plays where you can't, not be predictable. So here we're gonna push back into far. It looks like our team is actually getting kills at mid, so this is a good fight to push. and their Revenant overextends, so I'm going to retarget to them, but I see their Thief is really low. I don't manage to get the crit on my True Shot there, unfortunately, even though I had Resolution. But yeah, we're going to try to peel for our team here. I'm getting a lot of interrupts by their Thief. I see their Druid is here too. I missed my Spear of Justice, and I'm getting immobilized here. So this is maybe not the best situation. I'm low on cooldowns, but our team has pushed in because they won mid, and I'm able to get the kill on their Rev. And now their Druid, I'm going to try to... Yeah, that's one thing you have to really try to land your... That was a really good tether there, actually, because they went in stealth and I got the reveal. But yeah, the deflecting shot, you really have to position it well, because the delay on it makes it so that there's like a delay on the cast, and then it's not the fastest projectile. So your deflecting shot, you really need to position it well. Like, you have to move in a way that you'll kind of like lead on the enemy, not just with the projectile, but with your positioning, because it's such a slow ability. So you have to really think about the odds of something hitting and where the enemy is going to go to actually start landing your deflecting shots. But our team is kind of struggling in this team fight because they have regrouped, but we do have a 2-cap. I get a really good True Shot for 6k on their Reaper, and their Thief jumps on me, so I'm forced to use my Contemplation of Purity to get out of there. I re-push in, but their Reaper is in Lich form and just immediately presses the auto attack on me, and I get deleted. So I should not have re-engaged there, because I had every bit of capability to disengage. So I played overly aggressive there and got punished. But now our team is going to be at a very big disadvantage because I died. So the enemy team is going to get momentum from getting kills off of us. My Necro does survive a decent amount of time, but yeah, they're going to die anyways because I went in and died. So you have to know when to disengage. If you don't have cooldowns to disengage, then you're going to die. And in the case that I died, well, I had the cooldowns and I had the ability to leave, but I didn't. Now we're going to get the kill here. I put down my Longbow 5 and I actually land it on their Revenant, which traps them to be able to land my True Shot. I put down my traps on the downed Guardian there to make sure no one goes for a res. And now we're in a really good situation because we've got 2 kills and they can't really team fight. We lost our Necro, but we do own mid. So at this point, I'm going to put down some traps in that choke point there because traps are really good to place. If you ever win a fight and then you place down your traps, it's going to give you an advantage in that next fight because you can get essentially 2 sets of traps near the start. So I put down some traps on mid here, and hopefully we'll defend mid when they push in and regroup. But my Necro is pushing ahead, so we're not going to get the advantage of my traps, unfortunately. I try to peel for my ally by giving them my Shield of Courage and putting the animation on them, and now I'm trying to land my deflecting shot. So right there I landed the deflecting shot because I played a little bit aggressively. You kind of want to use it in melee range. And here I'm pressuring the node, and the Druid doesn't want to give the decap, but I'm able to burst the Ranger or the Necro from afar while the Druid tries to prevent me from getting the cap. So I'm essentially creating a sort of like a thief play there where I'm outnumbering the enemy by basically threatening to decap them. So that was a really good play to get the kill on that Reaper there by isolating them, by forcing their Druid to hold the node. And now we're going to go into mid and try to hold this. My team is going to arrive, but they go in stealth, so I'm going to go in stealth as well to avoid being jumped on by the Thief and the Rev. I see the Rev is no longer in there, and I don't see the Thief. See, that's a Reaper there, so I think it's pretty safe to leave here. I'm going to chase into the far node, but their Reaper is actually going to get the revive on their core Guardian, so I'm going to go for the True Shot. I don't have any of my buffs, so it doesn't crit, obviously, and I get feared. I'm going to use my F3 there to break that and give stability to my Revenant, which is going to allow them to pretty much just free cast. So the F3, you really want to be using that in those situations where there's a huge engagement happening, because you'll give stability to your allies. And you're not a support spec, but you are a DPS spec that is kind of, it scales up pretty well in team situations because you can give stability, cleanse to your allies. Earlier I tried to give my Wings of Resolve to my Necro. So yeah, you want to be aware of the ability to play with your teammates. This is not really a solo build. It's more of a 2v2, 3v3 build. And if you do have the support, it can team fight a little bit. So here I go in stealth and land my tether. I'm going to go for the deflecting shot. It lands, and I go for a really big, yeah, that was a really big Hunter's Ward there. And I'm going to get the down on the Thief here, because that all started with stealth into the Spear of Justice. So it's just so powerful to have your animations essentially not exist because you're in stealth. And that's, yes, arguably a very imbalanced mechanic, but it's been in the game for a while now. So, I mean, I would like it to be nerfed, but it is, you know, it is what it is. So that is going to be the end of the match. We're going to win. But if you like this video, then like the video, subscribe to me for more. If you want to support me, then leave a comment down below if you like this build and any potential problems that you might have with it. And of course, if you want to support me more directly, check out the links in the description. I will see you all next time.